Welcome to Parents and Teens Rising, the podcast that bridges the gap between parents and teens and helps families thrive. I'm Jasmyne Chandler, teen and parent coach, wilderness rites of passage guide, and founder of Guided Passages. After over 16 years of working with young people, I know how challenging and rewarding these years can be. Each week, we'll explore real conversations, practical tools, and fresh perspectives to help you connect with your teen, support their confidence, and navigate the ups and downs. Let's rise together. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today. Today I want to talk about something that's so near and dear to my heart, which is just the natural world, getting out in nature and connecting with the natural environment as a way to connect to ourselves and how impactful that is for our youth. All right, so I want to start today by sharing a little bit about my own experience with raising my kids. So I have raised my kids in the outdoors. We've spent countless hours camping, backpacking, river rafting, skiing, and snowboarding, to name a few. So really, nature has been our family's second home. My kids even attended an outdoor education school from kindergarten to middle school, where they had weekly outdoor field trips, they had campouts, they had backpacking adventures, all through their entire elementary school experience. So this has been a very big part of their entire upbringing. And what amazes me is that even now at 17 and 15, my kids can step into a natural environment with no internet and no cell service. And within minutes, they're completely at home. They're entertained by the river, the trees, the snow, or whatever surrounds them. And they just forget about their phones, which they're typically pretty glued to, like most teenagers these days. And I am convinced it's because their nervous systems recognize this connection. It's like a deep memory stored in their cells, and they can drop in almost instantly. And it is so cool to watch. So for example, I'm thinking of a time a couple summers back when my son was 16 and we were on a 5-day float down the wild and scenic portion of the Rogue River. So on our second or third day out, it started to rain pretty heavily. And so we pulled our boat over pretty early that day so we could set up camp. And my husband and daughter and I, we all huddled into our tents just to wait out the storm. But my 16-year-old son decided to start making fishing poles and contraptions to catch fish. And he busily entertained himself for hours and hours while the rain just kept coming down. There was no complaints, not really a care in the world, just getting creative and finding total engagement and entertainment from the natural world. And I was pretty blown away by that. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, I've done something right here as a parent. His ability to drop in like this into the natural world and find entertainment and contentment, even in the middle of a summer rainstorm, is something he just knows how to do because of the amount of exposure and time he has spent out in nature, which to me is just so amazing. So this really got me thinking about the way teens engage with the world and how certain experiences can create that same sense of groundedness and belonging, even in the midst of all the craziness of the world, right? So like I said, I've seen it firsthand with my own kids, but I'm not the only one who's noticed this. Scientists have actually been asking the same questions. Could these experiences in nature actually support teens' mental health and well-being in a measurable way? Right? So that curiosity led researchers to take a deeper dive, and they started to explore the link between time in natural environments and adolescent mental health. So as we all know, rates of anxiety and depression in adolescence are climbing worldwide. And at the same time, urbanization is spreading. So more and more kids are growing up in concrete environments, spending long hours indoors, often in front of screens. And some scientists have begun to wonder if part of this crisis comes not only from what young people are exposed to via technology and smartphones, etc., but also from what they're missing, which is time in nature. So this curiosity and these questions led one researcher, whose name is Tessa Lomax, to gather up a team together. And what they did was they compiled a ton of data that we have so far related to all of these different questions that we're talking about here. And they didn't just look at one study. What they did was they combed through over 1,600 papers and distilled the very best evidence into what's called a meta-review. And the studies they reviewed were all drawing conclusions about the role of nature in the mental health and well-being of kids and teens. And what they found was really fascinating. So first, the way researchers even define nature varies widely. So sometimes it's a schoolyard with a few trees, other times it's a tended garden, and sometimes it's the full wilderness experience with forests and rivers and mountains and all of that. So the team laid out a spectrum from human designed spaces with natural elements to semi-natural environments to wild landscapes. And they also looked at what type of access and the amount of time and exposure these kids had to these landscapes, and then their level of engagement with it. And across study after study, the evidence pointed in the same direction. Nature helps, right? So kids who had more green space around their homes showed lower levels of stress and better overall well-being. And time outdoors was linked to improved memory, focus, and even relief from ADHD symptoms. And activities in nature boosted confidence, reduced depressive symptoms, and helped young people feel calmer and more connected. So they didn't just find one single prescription, like 30 minutes a day, that works for everyone, but the pattern was really clear. The more meaningful and consistent the contact with nature, the greater the benefits. And of course, the review also pointed out some gaps. So for example, most studies were done in high-income countries with mostly white participants. So we still don't know enough about how these findings apply across cultures or in youth already struggling with significant mental health diagnoses. But the big takeaway is that even without every detail nailed down, nature appears to be a powerful, underused ally for adolescent mental health, according to the research. And just according to our own inner knowing and what we've experienced in our own lives and our own experiences out in the natural world, we just know that to be true, right? I mean, there's nothing like disconnecting from devices and being out in nature and just feeling that sense of connection to all of life, right? That we can feel so disconnected from, when we're sitting in our little chairs and our desks in a classroom, or sitting on the couch in front of the television, or scrolling endlessly on our phones. We often feel so disconnected in our daily lives. But when we're out in nature, we can listen, right? We can listen to the sounds of nature. We can feel the breeze against our skin. We can hear our own inner dialogue. We can think about things like what's important to me, what matters to me right now, things that we just don't have space or capacity for in our everyday busy lives, right? So honestly, the study confirms what I have witnessed again and again in my own work. So when young people step out of their busy, urban, screen-filled lives and into the natural world, something amazing shifts. The stress softens, their attention resets, they start to connect, not just with the trees or the sky, but with themselves, with each other, and with something bigger, right? It's so, so powerful.
Hey parents, I want to take a quick break to invite you to something really special. Tomorrow, Thursday, October 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm hosting a free live workshop called the Teen Confidence Breakthrough. If your teen has been anxious, unmotivated, or shutting down lately, this is the workshop you don't want to miss. I'll be sharing the same tools I teach teens in my programs, tools that help them calm their minds, build motivation, and start taking action again. You'll walk away with practical strategies you can start using right away to help your teen rebuild confidence and emotional strength from the inside out. And here's a bonus. If you join us live, you'll be entered to win my full 8-week digital course for parents called Rooted in Connection, which helps bring more harmony, trust, and understanding into your relationship with your teen. I'm giving away 2 spots, but you have to be there live to be entered to win. Don't miss this powerful opportunity to shift the dynamic in your home. You can sign up using the link in the show notes, and if you're listening to this after the workshop date has passed, just DM me the word replay and I'll send it your way.
So this is one of the many reasons I lead wilderness rites of passage trips, to give youth that immersion in nature that research shows can restore their minds and their spirits. But one thing I want to make a note of is that in my programs, we don't just romp in the woods, although that's part of it. That ability for kids to just let loose and get wild is so huge and so important. So it is a part of it, but it's not all of it. We also create intentional ceremonial spaces. And these are spaces where teens can wrestle with the bigger questions of their lives. Who am I? What do I care about? What am I here to do? What do I value? What's important to me? What do I want for myself? And they don't have to ask those questions alone. They're witnessed and supported by guides and by their peers. And so it is just so impactful and so powerful. So one of the most powerful ways we can create the supportive container is something that we call counsel. You might know this as sitting in circles. And the research here is just as exciting. So for instance, a study from 2014 by a researcher named Andrea Schumacher was done when she brought weekly talking circles into an urban high school for adolescent girls. At first, many of these students had never experienced anything like it, a space where they weren't being judged, where everyone had a voice, where listening was just as important as speaking. And over time, the impact was undeniable. The girls showed more empathy, they listened better, they managed anger in healthier ways, they built relational trust, but most importantly, they felt heard and supported, something that sadly many teens don't feel often in their daily lives, but it's something that they're desperately craving, even if they can't put words to it. And it's not just in schools. Another study published in 2022 looked at talking circles with Native American young adults. And this program was called Talking Circle for Young Adults, and it was deeply rooted in cultural tradition. The results were, again, really incredible. Participation reduced depression, lowered stress, and even decreased substance use. And at the same time, it strengthened cultural connection and resilience, reminding these young people of where they came from and the strengths they carry forward. And again, what we see here is that when youth are given safe, structured, ceremonial spaces to share their stories, to be listened to, and to belong, real healing happens. So when we weave together time and nature with the power of circle, we're not just giving young people a break from the noise of their lives, we're actually offering them medicine. Right? We're reminding them that they belong, that their voice matters, that they are held by community, and that the natural world can be both a mirror and a guide for them. And that's so much of what these rites of passage experiences are all about. And one more thing I want to mention is the research that was done by Jonathan Haidt. So if you've read his recent book, The Anxious Generation, and if you haven't, I highly recommend that you do, but you will know that he highlights something many of us have felt in our gut for a long time, that kids are not getting the kind of unstructured outdoor play that previous generations took for granted, right? My generation, we were out all day. We were romping, we were playing, we were exploring, right? We didn't even have cell phones to check back in with our parents. We were just out there being wild, right? And that's not happening today. So instead of roaming the neighborhood or riding bikes or exploring the woods, most modern day kids are spending their free time indoors, often on phones or devices. And Jonathan Haidt points out that this shift has a profound impact on kids' mental health. So the loss of free play and the rise of screen-based childhoods are strongly linked to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and disconnections. And it makes so much sense. When kids don't get the chance to test themselves, to take risks, and to build resilience in nature with peers, their nervous systems miss out on vital experiences of regulation, confidence, and belongings. Okay, so before I share how we weave nature connection and talking circles into our youth programs at Guided Passages, I want to pause and empower you as parents. So you don't have to wait for a big trip or a special program. There are simple ways to bring more nature into your family's life right now. And one of the best and easiest ways is to go camping together, especially places without cell service. There's something so incredibly powerful about letting your whole family step away from the constant noise of technology and just settle into the rhythms of the natural world. And giving your kids' nervous systems the chance to fully decompress and get wild in nature is, in my opinion, one of the most valuable gifts that you can offer your kids. And it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. A few basic essentials, a tent, sleeping bags, mats, and a cooler, and some camp chairs are really all you need. And outdoor consignment shops are amazing for finding quality gear at a fraction of the cost. So with just those basics, you're ready to escape to the outdoors and create something really, really priceless for your family, which is a deeper connection between your kids, the natural world, and your family as a whole. And actually, if you have been doing this with your kids, taking them on camping adventures and getting them into the outdoors already, please let me know in the comments. How have your kids benefited from this? What have you noticed in their behaviors, their sense of self, and their overall mental health and well-being after spending time in nature? What have you noticed about your connection as a family after these types of nature experiences? My guess is that it's brought a lot of joy, connection, and much needed decompression from our overstimulating technological everyday life experiences. But I really want to hear from you. What do you think? Pop it in the comments below. Finally, I want to share how my youth organization, Guided Passages, is helping to bring this work forward and provide more opportunities for teens and young adults to get outside and make deeper connections with themselves and nature. So first of all, I'm excited to share that my weekly Youth Connect program started last week for 6th to 9th graders and is going to continue throughout the school year. And this is a space where teens can practice connection, share honestly, and build social and emotional skills in a supportive environment. So during these in-person groups, we use the council format, which I talked about earlier. So youth can not only feel deeply seen and heard, but also learn to build empathy and compassion through listening to their peers and mentors as well. So if you're curious about this and you're in Southern Oregon, it's not too late to get your teen involved. There's still a couple spots left in our fall session, and we would love to have your teen hop in. So also looking ahead to next summer, we're going to be running a couple of Wilderness Rites of Passage backpacking trips in 2026. We'll be doing these in the Marble Mountains of Northern California, which is just an epically beautiful backcountry experience with mountain lakes, beautiful hikes, just mountain vista views, just so incredible. Such a wonderful place for kids to get to explore. So that's what's happening next summer. We've been doing this for several years now. So we're going to be planning for sure a 5-day trip for 7th to 9th graders. That's an amazing experience for them. They're going to have a 6-hour solo time experience. So they're going to have this rite of passage initiation moment during this time out in the wilderness. And then we're also going to be offering either a 10th to 12th grade trip or a young adult trip for 18 to 24-year-olds. And I'm going to decide which of these trips to offer based on waitlist interest. And our waitlists are currently open on my website at guidedpassages.com, and there's a dash between guided and passages. I'm also going to pop the link below into the show notes. But these trips are a chance for teens and young adults to immerse themselves in nature, explore big questions, have an initiation moment into the next phase of their life, whether that's from, being a child and stepping into their teenage years, or from being a teenager stepping into adulthood, or whatever that marking moment might be. They're going to have a moment to really persevere through a big challenge, to explore the natural world, to have mentorship and support. Just a really, really rich and beautiful opportunity and experience that they're going to be able to draw from for the rest of their lives. So that's what's going to be happening. And if you're interested, again, pop into the wait list so I know the interest for each of these trips, and so we can really determine which ones we're going to be running this summer. All right, so if you're a parent or a caregiver or a mentor for a young person, I hope this episode has shown you how powerful it can be to combine nature, mentorship, and structured connection for teens. So whether it's weekly talking circles or an immersive wilderness experience, these practices help young people thrive, grow, and step confidently into their next chapter. And if this resonates with you or your teen, I really encourage you to check out the programs and consider joining us. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast or to my YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. And it would mean the world to me if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your review helps this show reach more parents and teens who could benefit from these conversations. Thanks so much for listening today, and I can't wait to share more about these transformative experiences in future episodes. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.